Well, let's speak to Bulama Bukarti about this. He's a conflict and development analyst focusing on sub-Saharan Africa. He's joining us from London. Thank you so much for your time. Let me ask you first, why Nigeria, being Africa's largest economy, why are children still dying of malnutrition at such alarming rates? What factors are contributing to this?
There are three main factors contributing to this. The first is conflict. In this part of Nigeria, the northwestern part of Nigeria, criminal gangs locally called bandits have been wreaking havoc for the past 15 years or so. They have killed over 30,000 people, abducted hundreds of thousands of people, and have extorted millions of dollars in ransom over the past 15 years or so. And this conflict has displaced hundreds of villages and communities. And these communities are mostly farming and herding communities, and therefore displacing them from their homes is also displacing them from their livelihood. This conflict has also cut access to markets, to hospitals, and so on.
Right.
Secondly, there is hyperinflation going on in Nigeria. Nigeria's new government removed subsidy over fuel and the Nigerian currency, and that has sent food prices skyrocketing. Right. It is easing now, but even as at now, food price is at 22.7% inflation.
Okay.
And this is making it unaffordable.
Let me just pick up on that, because that's very interesting, because the Nigerian government has often blamed funding shortages or external actors. But, I mean, to what extent does the responsibility also lie with the Nigerian government in terms of governance, in terms of corruption and prioritization of resources?
Yeah, I mean, funding cuts is one factor, but to be honest, the primary responsibility lies with the Nigerian government, to whom Nigeria's money goes, and under Nigeria's constitution, it is the primary responsibility of the government to take care of the welfare and livelihoods of Nigerians. The Nigerian government has slated around 200 billion naira, which is around $130 million in the 2025 budget for AIDS. But that is much smaller than the need on the ground. We are talking about 1.3 million people displaced in the Northeast and hundreds of thousands displaced in the Northwest and the North Central. The funding gap created by the international aid cuts is much larger than the plug the Nigerian government is proposing.
All right, let me ask you about that. I mean, the Trump administration has slashed, as we know, foreign assistance and dismantled U.S. aid structures that were once very critical to this region, northeastern Nigeria, but also to the wider sub-Saharan Africa region. When these lifelines are cut off, what fills the vacuum? And you know, what sort of international, does that lack of international support worsen the crisis on the ground?
Absolutely. It wasn't the crisis on the ground in terms of making more young people vulnerable for recruitment by terrorists and criminal groups. It is also making families to choose between the bad and the worst options. For example, many families are having to cut on meals, so many people take one or two meals a day. Children are forced to marry early, or they are forced into unwanted marriages. School dropouts are increasing on the ground, and also things like sex for survival and other sorts of social distresses, including immigration, is happening on the ground. But most importantly, this is escalating the violence because more young people are desperately being forced to join criminal and terrorist groups.
So are you saying that this gives armed groups like Boko Haram more leverage by stepping in to provide food and money to these desperate communities?
Absolutely. It is Boko Haram, it is the bandits, it is armed and criminal groups throughout the country, because when young people are idle, when they do not have food to eat, then they become more vulnerable to be recruited by these groups. And even new criminal groups and terrorist groups are forming because of this crisis. And the more they continue, the more the violence escalates. And unfortunately, it becomes a vicious cycle of violence leading to hunger, and hunger leading to recruitment, and recruitment leading to more violence and immigration and other distresses on the ground.
Thank you so much for your insight. Thank you for talking to us about the situation in northeastern Nigeria and the wider region. Bulama Bukati, a conflict and development analyst focusing on sub-Saharan Africa, live there from London. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you very much.